And this is where stuff started me up because what? What? Hey y'all, welcome and or welcome back to my channel. My name is Janae, if you didn't know, and today's video is another true crime episode. So if you're ready, let's go. Alright y'all, so I did my nails last night. I pretty much just did a very simple one color type of deal. There we go. You know, I'm pretty sure though that these are going to fall off within the next 24 hours because I didn't do no type of nail prep. I really just slapped these babies on and painted them. And so, you know, it is what it is. And also, I know I'm grown and I know I've been grown for a long time now, but I'm like getting to the age where I get excited about like oil changes. I just got an oil change in my car and they changed my windshield wiper fluid hose for free. And I don't know about y'all, but that made me happy because my little warning sign done went off in my car and everything. Like, I just love a good freebie, you know? But anyways, today's case, y'all. Today's case is actually insane. And this is not even the case that I was going to do this week. But once I started looking into it, y'all, I had to get it out. I just had to. The sharp left that this case took had me shook. And this case has been noted as one of the worst homicides in Memphis history. And no shade to Memphis, but that says a lot. And with all that being said, we just gonna go ahead and hop right into today's case. So it is March 2nd, 2008, and Memphis police are dispatched to 722 Leicester Street. And the caller said that she went over there to see her son and her son's father, but when she got there, the door was open, and instead of just walking straight in, she decided to call out to the people who she knew would be there. So she calling their names, and nobody is responding to her. Nobody's answering her. And instead of going to see for herself, she decided to call the police. And once the police got there, the scene that they walked into, I can't even bring myself to the words, right? I can't even get the words out of my mouth because what they saw not only traumatized them, but it would literally shake the whole community. So when the detectives walked in, they first noticed 4 adults deceased in the living room. There was blood everywhere. It was bad. But as they proceeded to go into the house, they realized that these 4 victims in the front weren't the only victims in the house, because in a bedroom, the detectives would find 2 deceased children, and in a bathtub, they would find 1 child who appeared to be deceased at first, but was actually still alive. And they also found 2 more living children. So in total, that is 6 people dead and 3 people on the brink of death. That is 9 victims, 5 of which are children. So obviously the 3 living victims are rushed to the hospital, all in critical condition. And the detectives now have to process this scene and figure out what the heck happened here. And one of the first things that they noticed was that there was no sign of forced entry. And also there was a gun that was near the couch. I think it was a shotgun that was near the couch that had not been fired. It wasn't the cause of anybody in the house's injuries. And those 2 things in combination kind of led detectives to believe that whoever committed this crime was known to the people in the house. And as they keep processing the scene, they see a sandwich bag full of shell casings on the couch. And as they're looking at these shell casings, they realize that these are 2 different shell casings, meaning that they came from 2 different firearms. But they quickly realized that those weren't the only 2 weapons that were used in the commission of this crime, because there were knife blades broken off all over the house, and there were also wooden sticks laying around the house that had blood on them. So they determined that all in all, at least 2 guns had been used, multiple knives and multiple wooden sticks had been used in the commission of this crime. And because of the amount of weapons that was used, they determined that this crime had to have been carried out by more than 1 person, 2 at the least, but potentially up to 4 people could have committed this crime. Now, they obviously have a lot of evidence to collect, but as we all know, an investigation truly starts once you know who the victims are. And in this case, the 4 adults who were identified were 30-year-old Cecil Dotson and his girlfriend, who is also the mother of 4 of his kids, 27-year-old Marissa Williams, 27-year-old Hollis Seals, who was Cecil's friend, and Hollis's 22-year-old girlfriend, Shindri Robertson. And the 2 kids who were also found deceased, they were identified as 4-year-old Samario Dotson and 2-year-old Cecil Dotson II. And the 3 children who were taken to the hospital in critical condition were identified as 9-year-old Cecil Dotson Jr., 6-year-old Cedric Dotson, and 2-month-old Sanaya Dotson. So all the kids who were in the house were Cecil's. And based on the condition of the decedent's bodies, the medical examiner determined that this crime had happened between 24 and 48 hours prior to them all being found, which means the kids who survived had at least been laying there for a full day. So immediately the detectives want to talk to people who knew the victims, and a teenage girl comes forward saying that she is a relative of the family, but she did live in the house on Lester. But at the time that the crime happened, she was actually visiting with her mom, so she wasn't there. But she did say that she had heard rumors that Cecil and his older brother, Jesse Dotson, had robbed an alleged gang member named Doc. And so with this information, the detectives thought that this could have been in retaliation of Doc being robbed. But before they go and find Doc, they want to talk to Jesse just to see if there's any validity to this family member's statement. So they find Jesse and they bring him in for questioning. And what Jesse tells them kind of corroborates this family member's story. So what Jesse said was that Cecil was in fact beefing with Doc. However, he and Cecil never robbed Doc. He said he didn't even know Doc like that for real. But he did know that his brother Cecil and Doc were beefing because apparently Cecil had disrespected Doc in some way, and a GD meeting was called because apparently, allegedly, Cecil was a GD as well. And so this GD meeting is to happen, and Cecil said he wasn't going. And when he didn't show up to the meeting, it was pretty much like a big fuck you to Doc. And so Doc ended up writing him up. And we'll get back to the write-up in a minute. But Jesse said he don't know what the consequences of a write-up could be because he ain't no G. He don't know nothing about that life. He just know what his brother been telling him. And so now detectives want to find Doc for sure. But while they on the search for Doc, some of the detectives go to the hospital to check on the surviving victims. And fortunately, even though they all came in with extensive injuries, and when I say extensive, I mean like bad injuries. This is the x-ray of one of the kids who was sent to the hospital. But fortunately, they will all survive despite these injuries. And so detectives are hoping that the 9-year-old Cecil Jr. will be able to help them in this investigation and pretty much tell them what happened. However, when they go in there to talk to Cecil Jr., he's not ready. And so they don't force him to talk or anything like that. They kind of just back off. But the detectives is keeping their foot on the gas though. But since they don't have their suspect in custody, they want to make sure that these children are safe. So they put the kids into protective custody where they are monitored 24/7 and they are not allowed to speak to anyone outside of law enforcement until whoever did this is locked up and behind bars. But they really wouldn't have to look too hard for their main suspect, Doc, because once Doc heard that the police wanted to talk to him, he called them. So Doc goes in to be interviewed by detectives and he denies everything, even being in a gang. He said he has no affiliation, and he also said that Cecil never robbed him. He said that the two of them never even had any beef. And so despite the fact that Doc is a strong suspect, the detectives really didn't have any solid evidence that he was the one who committed this crime. And so they had to let him go. And without any more leads, they was kind of stuck. And so what ended up happening was that Crime Stoppers had put out a $30,000 reward for anyone with information that led to an arrest in this case. And with money being put out there, people start calling. The tips was rolling in back to back to back. However, all of the tips that were called in turned out to be dead ends. It was just people trying to get some money. Did none of their stories make sense, and they was all bad. And so the detectives are still detectiving, but they keep going back to this gang retaliation theory because it just makes the most sense. And with the brutality of this crime, it just seemed like somebody was trying to send a message. And so what they ended up doing was reaching out to a former GD gang member just to see if this is a type of hit that would be carried out by them. And so they get in contact with this former G and they ask him what would the consequence be for a person who had been written up. And this former gang member tells them that something that is known as a DV could be ordered, which is a death violation, pretty much meaning that they would kill said person. And so they asked him what he thought about the whole situation, the whole case. And he said that the first time that he heard about the case, the first thing that came to his mind was a blackout. He said that it sounded like a blackout had been ordered, which pretty much means to take out the whole family. And then the police wanted to know, would Doc be able to order said blackout? But this guy said that no, Doc wasn't high enough in rank to order a blackout. It would have to be someone above Doc. And with this information that they got from this former gang member, the retaliation theory is really high up on their list. But they also heard the gang member say that a blackout meant to take out the whole family. That's mama, daddy, sister, nieces, nephews, all of that. And so they decided to put the rest of the Dotson family into protective custody along with the 3 surviving children, because if this was a blackout hit, their lives were in danger as well. And as far as I know, the people who were also put into protective custody were Cecil's sister Nicole, his older brother Jesse, his mom, and any other kids. And while this family is in protective custody, the detectives get a call from Nicole, Cecil's sister, and she says that somebody is calling her from her house. She said that she got a phone call from her house number, and the person who called pretty much said that they was all in danger and they were pretty much threatening the rest of the family. And so she ended up giving the detectives the key to her house because ain't nobody even supposed to be there. How is she getting a phone call from her house when she's not there and nobody else should be there? So she gave the detectives her key and they go to do a raid. Not a raid. Is it a raid? That's not a raid. They go to the house with a tactical unit because whoever was there was probably the person who committed this crime on the rest of her family. And so they go in, but nobody's there. Nothing is in disarray. Nothing has been taken. There's no sign of anybody forcing their way in. So it was essentially another dead end. So they ended up just going back to the hospital to check on the kids to see how they were doing. And this time when they went back, Cecil Jr. was awake and he was able to talk and he was willing to talk. He was ready. And this is where stuff started fucking me up because what? So the detectives are talking to CJ and they are building up to the who did this to you? And once they get to that question, CJ says Junior. And I know y'all are probably like, okay, who the hell is Junior? Well, Junior is Jesse Dotson, Cecil's older brother, the one who is in protective custody with the rest of his family. And before we get into the rest of the case, let me just go ahead and tell you a little bit about Jesse Dotson Jr. Jesse Dotson Jr. was born on December 19th, 1974 to his mom, Ida Anderson, and his dad, Jesse Dotson Sr. in Memphis, Tennessee. And apparently, Jesse has always been a very troubled child and never really took kindly to discipline or taking accountability for his actions. Because in 1990, when he was just 15 years old, Jesse will be charged with disorderly conduct because his mom actually had to call the police on him because he did something wrong. And when she tried to discipline him, he threatened her. He straight up threatened her. And whatever the threat was, she felt that it was serious enough for her to call the police. And henceforth, he was charged with disorderly conduct. Now, what his punishment was for the disorderly conduct, I don't know, because just a month after this incident, he would hit a 13-year-old in the face and threaten to put him in the hospital if he didn't bring him $25 the next day. So basically, Jesse was a big ass bully. And for hitting this 13-year-old in the face, he was charged with battery, which again, don't know if he did any time for that, spent any time in a juvenile facility, or if he even got any type of punishment for that. But throughout the rest of his teenage years, he would have a battery charge here, a disorderly conduct charge there. He would threaten his mom multiple times. He always stayed into it with his little brother Cecil. And he would fight with the neighbors as well. Jesse was just not, he was just not a fun person to be around. And eventually all of these battery charges and disorderly conducts that he had racked up would transform into a murder charge, because in January of 1994, when Jesse was just 19 years old, he was a dope boy. He was selling dope. And he had made plans to meet up with this person named Hallie Cox. And he was going to sell Hallie some dope. However, when Hallie got the little baggie, he realized that this ain't what he thought it was. Jesse had just sold him some soap shavings, and Hallie wasn't about to let that slide. So he confronted Jesse. But when he confronted Jesse, instead of Jesse taking accountability for his actions, he got into an argument with Hallie and ended up shooting and killing him. And originally for this crime, he was charged with first-degree murder. However, he would end up pleading guilty to second-degree murder and would be sentenced to 18 years in prison. However, he wouldn't do the full 18. He would do about 13 and some, and he was let out on August 27, 2007. And on January 26, 2008, his parole was up and his sentence had expired. So Jesse was like free. And when Jesse had came home in August, his family was so excited. They were so happy to see him. They were pretty much happy that he had gotten a second chance at life on the outside. And nobody was more happy than his little brother, Cecil, because even though the two of them got into it and Jesse was kind of mean to him, that was still his big brother. And I don't want to say he looked up to him, because probably not. I wouldn't look up to that. But that was his big brother. So Cecil was pretty happy that Jesse was finally out of jail. And so now that he's been named by his nephew as the perpetrator of this family massacre, detectives needed to know why. They wanted to know what the hell happened. And so they go and pick Jesse up from protective custody, because let's not forget that he's still in protective custody with the rest of his family. And they take him down to the police station to be interviewed for a second time. And at first, Jesse is telling them the story of how he went to work that day, Cecil picked him up, and they went back to Cecil's house for a little bit. They kicked it, had fun, good times, and then Cecil dropped Jesse back off to wherever he was staying. And that was the last time that he seen his brother. And detectives know that this is a load of crap. However, they don't have any solid evidence on him. Aside from the fact that CJ said that it was him, they really didn't have nothing. So they needed Jesse to confess. And eventually Lieutenant Armstrong decided to just show his hand, and he played the recording of CJ saying that it was him who had committed this crime. And Jesse confessed. And he pretty much said that that night him and Cecil had gotten into it pretty bad, and he ended up killing Cecil and then proceeded to kill the other 3 adult victims. And he said that he attacked the kids because they saw him. But I don't believe that. I really don't believe that. Now, CJ did say in an interview that he saw Jesse doing what he did, but he was kind of peeking, and so he didn't think that Jesse saw him. And even if Jesse did see him, I'm not saying that Jesse should have done this at all, but at the very least, the 2-month-old wasn't going to say nothing. He really could have just left that baby alone. And furthermore, the brutality of the attacks on the kids, sir, I feel like that's something he wanted to do. I just feel like that's something he wanted to do. Anyways, he was charged with 6 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of attempted murder. And he pleaded not guilty because there was a trial where he did take the stand in his own defense. And he said that he didn't do it. He said that he was under the bed during the whole attack. Okay. The jury took less than 90 minutes to find him guilty on all charges. And on October 12th, 2010, he was sentenced to 6 death sentences. And then on November 8th, 2010, he was sentenced to an additional 120 years for the attempted murder. So essentially 40 years for each attempted murder. Basically, he gonna die 6 times, then go to jail in hell. And I feel like with 6 death sentences, they should like take him to the brink of death and then revive him and then take him to the brink of death again 6 times. Just so he can feel it. Just so he's You know, is that cruel? Is that cruel and unusual? No. But anyways, y'all, while Jesse was on death row, he ended up getting married. And he still maintains his innocence. He still say that he was under that bed, just looking, listening. And yeah, he's still waiting on his death, I think. I don't think he did yet. But anyways, the surviving children were given to Ida, and they are all doing well now. CJ did an interview. It's here on YouTube if you want to watch it. I will link it in the comments below. Or no, maybe not in the comments. In the description, the comments. It's going to be somewhere down below. And yeah, y'all, that concludes today's case. Thank you all so very much for watching. Y'all have to let me know what y'all think about this case in the comments. And I will see you all in the next one. Okay, I knew I wasn't crazy. A little slow, not crazy though. And so that right there, and those two in combination. So, damn, girl, excuse me. However, him and Doc, no. It's on my nose and I feel it, but I cannot grab it. Oh my God. And I see it too. Oh my God. Okay, there you are. Ooh. But while Jesse, why my lips look crooked? And yeah, y'all, that concludes today's case.